The chamber was silent as Ambassador Lyra Miles stood before the Galactic Council. Her voice did not tremble. "We stood beside you when the hive came. We bled in the scorching wars. We shared our science, our food, our worlds." She scanned the faces of dozens of species, all avoiding her gaze. "And now you vote to expel us?" No one answered. The vote had already passed. Earth was exiled, not for crimes committed, but for the fear it had begun to inspire. The Council accused humanity of defiance, of secrecy, of aggression. The truth? Humanity had grown too capable, too independent, too unpredictable. Council Speaker Zorak's voice was cold. Earth's refusal to share singularity-based propulsion violates Article 9. You withhold progress. You destabilize equilibrium. The Council cannot tolerate risk. Lyra stepped back, disbelief washing over her face. "You begged us for that technology. We said no because you weren't ready, because you'd weaponize it." She took a breath. "We save your species more than once. You repay us with betrayal." Zorak didn't respond. He didn't have to. Armed guards entered the chamber. Lyra was seized. She didn't resist. As she was dragged away, she shouted one last time, "This isn't peacekeeping. It's cowardice. You've just made the worst mistake of your existence." That was the last message Earth received from her. 3 days later, the skies around Earth turned red. Council fleets established a blockade. Trade routes were severed. Earth's outer colonies were bombarded under accusations of strategic militarization. Civilian ships, unarmed, were intercepted and destroyed. Whole families incinerated. Communications jammed. Relief aid forbidden. The world watched as Sol's colonies burned. Mars lost 2 domes. Europa's oceans boiled. The Titan station went dark. Council justification was vague and contradictory. Preventive measures, enforcement actions, collective security. Behind every lie was the same intent. Isolate Earth, punish it, and dismantle its threat. Earth's leadership held back. For weeks, there was no retaliation. The Council interpreted this as weakness, hesitation, fear. But humanity wasn't silent out of confusion. It was grieving. They watched the feeds as Lyra Miles was brought back to the Council dais. Shackled, starved, she was forced to kneel. Cameras streamed it to every Council world, a lesson in subjugation. Then, without trial or mercy, they executed her. A clean beam through the skull. No words, just another reminder that Earth was alone. Then everything changed. A pulse was sent across ancient Council emergency channels, not from Earth's diplomats or generals. From a voice only a few still recognized, an old war hero turned strategist, Admiral Noah Vance. His words were few. "You betrayed us. You forgot what we are. We are done talking." The broadcast ended, and then came the silence. The Council waited, watched, laughed in private chambers about human dramatics. They fortified, reinforced the blockade. Intelligence reported nothing unusual. Earth skies remained clear, ports inactive, no fleet movements, just radio silence. But in the darkness beyond Sol, in the asteroids and black ice and dead orbits of forgotten moons, humanity had not been idle. For decades, Earth had feared extinction. It had prepared, not with bravado, but with grim certainty. Not for conquest, but for survival. Project Iron Halo, Ghost Protocol, Leviathan Echo, code names spoken only in whispers, blueprints stored in quantum-locked archives, black fleets, invisible to Council sensors, hulls grown from adaptive alloys, weapons unknown to science, systems powered by singularity cores, the very tech Earth refused to share, vessels without heat signatures, without light, without limiters. They began to move. One by one, they left their hiding places. Hidden shipyards on Ceres, dark stations under Enceladus ice, lunar vaults buried in silence. All opened. Humanity didn't recall its embassies. It didn't issue warnings. It just vanished from the Council's radar. Then, days later, Varnock Prime, an industrial hub of the Council, known for its fuel refineries and population centers, lost contact. Not a word. No distress calls. No survivors. When a scouting drone arrived weeks later, it found a charred husk. No orbit. No moons. Just debris. Sensor logs showed impossible readings. Space-time ruptures, gravitational echoes, radiation spikes outside known spectrums. The Council's arrogance began to fracture. More colonies went dark. Not bombed, not occupied, just gone. Infrastructure surgically removed. Command structures decapitated. Civilian sectors untouched. Earth wasn't waging war. It was delivering judgment. Council High Command initiated Emergency Protocol Theta, a direct assault on Sol. The blockade fleet doubled. Dreadnoughts positioned over Earth and Mars. They broadcast demands. Surrender. Disarm. Submit to tribunal. No answer. The fleet launched warning strikes. Earth's atmosphere lit with kinetic pulses. Skyscrapers fell. Orbitals cracked. A declaration of domination. Still no answer. Then, from the edge of the system, a signal. One word. Now! In less than 2 minutes, over 200 Earth-borne vessels emerged between Mars and Saturn under Council carriers inside dead space zones the Council had deemed empty. They did not jam signals or cloak engines. They didn't need to. They moved faster than Council ships could track. Council vessels turned to engage, only to find their command systems unresponsive, their targeting scrambled. Their AIs began speaking nonsense. Some ships fired on their own escorts. Others simply detonated. By the time the Earth fleet reached the blockade line, half the Council ships were dead. The rest fled. Earth didn't chase. They sent a single broadcast. This is restraint. The Council had pushed a species that had mastered adaptation, born in scarcity, forged in war. A species that had learned to build after every collapse. That wore emotion not as weakness, but as power. That remembered every betrayal. Humanity had not come to negotiate. It had come to remind the galaxy, never corner the species that survives everything. Earth's enemies had mistaken silence for surrender. What they didn't understand was that humanity never prepared for victory. It prepared for loss. Every war, every extinction threat, every near collapse had taught the same lesson. Survive first, rebuild second, and then make sure it never happens again. After their first encounter with the Galactic Council, Earth had quietly redirected its focus. While they played politics on the surface, beneath the crust of their dead moons and in the shadows of cold gas giants, humanity was constructing its real answer to betrayal. Not fleets for show, not diplomacy, insurance. Project Iron Halo began as a contingency. After the Hive War, Earth realized its allies would abandon them the moment they became inconvenient. So humanity built in secret off-grid, away from every known Council sensor network. Generations of engineers were raised in isolation, given only one instruction: build something that ensures Earth is never silenced again. Their results weren't ships. They were predators. These vessels didn't resemble anything the Council recognized. Their hulls shifted composition mid-battle. Armor that learned from every impact. Engines powered by microsingularities. AI that didn't take orders. They made suggestions. These ships didn't follow a fleet formation. They hunted in packs. And yet, these were not weapons of conquest. They were weapons of warning. Humanity's doctrine wasn't to dominate. It was to end threats before they could multiply. The Council had taught Earth that bureaucracy couldn't be trusted. So humanity chose precision, silence, and finality. Admiral Noah Vance activated these fleets without public declaration. There was no press release, no ceremony, only sealed orders and Euro key confirmations. Within minutes, Earth's entire Black Armada was mobile. Mars mobilized its Red Division, veterans of deep space conflicts, surgically enhanced for low-gravity warfare. Titan stations activated Leviathan-class dreadnoughts, stored in hibernation for over a century. Deep in the Oort cloud, solar stealth platforms powered up and began feeding targeting data in real time. Humanity didn't just respond. It coordinated. Unlike Council navies, Earth's command wasn't based on hierarchy. It was based on modular response AI, which allowed split-second adaptation without needing permission. Council fleets were efficient. Human fleets were alive, and they struck with terrifying precision. Targets were selected not for symbolic value, but for infrastructure, relay hubs, fuel stations, memory archives, navigation gates. Human fleets didn't waste time disabling defenses. They surgically removed the ability to communicate, coordinate, or recover. At Drogar Station, Earth strike teams appeared before alarms could register. Dozens of Council commanders were found dead in their quarters, their security systems untouched. Power grids melted from the inside. Not a shot was fired from orbit. By the time reinforcements arrived, the facility had been emptied of all intel and turned into a black box trap that detonated upon analysis. On Carry-On Prime, the fleet watched as Council propaganda broadcasts played footage of Earth's cowardice. Before the last image faded, Earth's ships appeared above the skyline. Locals saw only a ripple in the sky, and then nothing. Moments later, the central communication array split into 5 pieces and fell into the sea. No buildings hit, no civilians harmed, but every voice silenced. Earth wasn't retaliating. It was demonstrating capability. The Council realized too late that their assumptions had been fatal. They believed Earth needed their technology, their trade, their approval. What they never grasped was that humanity had grown by building under pressure. No species in the galaxy had learned to innovate faster or adapt harder than humans. It wasn't because of talent. It was because they had no other choice. While other civilizations waited centuries for consensus, Earth rebuilt itself after every war, every collapse, every betrayal. It had seen the end 100 times and always clawed its way back. Now it wasn't clawing. It was calculating. Council AI began breaking down under the assault. Earth's cyber units used language-based attack sequences, embedding logic paradoxes in command protocols that spread like viruses. Defensive systems simply refused to engage, unable to process a threat that constantly changed form. Council fleets tried to regroup in the Denari expanse. Earth let them. Then, just as the last destroyer entered formation, every Council ship experienced simultaneous navigation failure. When they regained control, they were no longer in the Denari expanse. They were inside Jupiter's radiation belt. It was never about firepower. It was about control. Earth had quietly mapped and manipulated the warp corridors the Council depended on. Every time a Council ship jumped, it went exactly where Earth intended, into traps, into silence, into nothing. Then came the real shift. Council member worlds began defecting, not from ideology, but fear. The Dravari Collective sent a transmission. We want peace. We did not vote for war. Please respond. Earth didn't answer, but the Dravari's military vanished from the conflict. Other worlds followed. Some even offered secrets, Council war crimes, hidden caches, internal weaknesses. Humanity accepted them without acknowledgement. Even in victory, it didn't boast. Back on Earth, the people didn't cheer. There were no celebrations, no parades. Every civilian knew what had happened. They'd watched the feeds. They remembered the silence, the graves, the betrayal. On the outskirts of the Sol system, a Council ambassador's shuttle appeared under escort, broadcasting pleas for negotiation. Earth intercepted the signal, decrypted the message, and then disabled the ship's engines. The shuttle was allowed to drift for days. Then, silently, it was returned to Council space. No message, just one less ship. The Council no longer asked when Earth would attack. They asked what Earth would leave behind. Humanity had always been underestimated because it didn't seek power. It sought survival. That made it patient, quiet, strategic. Now the galaxy saw the truth. When humanity fights, it does not rage blindly. It calculates loss, adapts faster, and strikes where recovery is impossible. It learns, and it remembers. Every burned colony, every lost child, every word spoken before Ambassador Miles died. They turned their grief into doctrine, and now that doctrine was burning through the stars. The Council had ceased military coordination. Too many fleets gone, too many systems dark. Fear infected every level of command. They had always seen Earth as volatile, emotional, unpredictable. But this war was none of those things. It was cold, efficient, impossibly surgical. Humanity was dismantling an empire without conquering a single world. Panic set in. Member species turned inward, fortifying their home systems. Allies betrayed one another to avoid being seen as too close to Earth. Treaties were revoked. Entire regions of space severed communication, believing silence might make them invisible. But Earth wasn't watching chatter. It was watching movement. And it didn't miss a single one. The Arcani Syndicate attempted to flee the Council, retreating to deep space sectors with their fleets and corporate data. They believed they were hidden. Earth's response came not in ships, but in silence. The Arcani were erased, their memory cores blanked, their trade beacons deactivated, their entire economic grid turned to static. 100 billion credits worth of infrastructure reduced to scrap. No explosions, no casualties, just nothing. Galactic historians called it the Quiet War. There were no drawn-out sieges, no public battles, just events, systems collapsing, bases disappearing, stars suddenly empty where life had been recorded. It became clear Earth had not only prepared for war, but had mastered something deeper: asymmetry. While the Council measured fleets and firepower, Earth calculated pressure points and cascading failure. Their engineers didn't build monuments. They built consequences. Their AIs didn't engage in simulations. They altered the variables of reality. And while the galaxy reeled, Earth prepared its final message. Admiral Noah Vance did not seek revenge. He didn't need it. He understood that punishment didn't need to be loud. It needed to be permanent. So Earth chose a final target: the Council Citadel, the place where Ambassador Lyra Miles was betrayed, where humanity was expelled, where the galaxy decided Earth's future without its consent. The Citadel wasn't just a symbol. It was a communications nexus, a judicial seat, and a tactical relay, a relic from the oldest interstellar treaties. It had never been attacked. No species had dared. Earth didn't hesitate. The operation was codenamed Spectrefall. It wasn't an invasion. It was an audit, for vessels entered Council space. They didn't announce themselves. They didn't jam signals. They simply existed in systems that should have been secure. One by one, defensive layers shut down. The Citadel's outer fleets failed to respond. Automated defenses registered nothing. Internal systems began reporting false data. Crew manifest errors, oxygen fluctuations, ghost signatures. But it wasn't a glitch. It was Earth's intelligence division, wielding a weapon the Council had never believed humanity possessed: patience. Earth had spent years planting seeds, devices smaller than insects, signal fractures buried in old transmissions, logic errors embedded in shared encryption updates. While the Council thought it was absorbing Earth's data, Earth had been teaching the Citadel to self-destruct. At 317 Galactic Standard, the Citadel went offline. No impact, no explosions, just a dead signal. When scouts arrived, the station was still intact. But every terminal, every data archive, every backup AI had been overwritten. The original crew? Gone. No bodies. No records. It was as if the station had decided to forget its purpose. Floating in the central chamber was a single artifact: Lyra Miles' diplomatic badge, placed on the floor, facing the speaker's chair. Earth hadn't destroyed the Citadel. It had nullified it, and in doing so, it erased the power of the Council. Member races scrambled to hold what was left, but Earth made no further moves. It didn't occupy. It didn't demand tribute. It simply stopped. For a week, the stars went silent. No fleets moved. No transmissions answered. The galaxy held its breath. Then, one final message was transmitted. Human voice. Calm. Male. Possibly Admiral Vance, though he was never officially credited. The message contained no threats, no ultimatums, just a reality. You showed us who you are, so we reminded you who we became. This war is over. We are not coming back. Do not come looking. Then Earth vanished. They sealed Sol's gates. All warp corridors leading to human space were collapsed. Satellites self-destructed. Beacons went dark. Earth had disconnected itself from the galactic network entirely. There would be no diplomacy, no commerce, no contact. They had become myth. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed Earth had ascended, abandoning physical form. Others insisted it was watching from deep space, still waiting, still listening. Some believed Earth had built an empire in the void, beyond known charts. But no one ever heard from humanity again. Years passed. Council remnants tried to rebuild. Treaties were signed in Earth's absence, but the scars remained. No species dared mimic the arrogance that sparked the war. Every council meeting began with a moment of silence, not for the fallen, but for the warning. Humanity had asked for nothing, and still left everything standing in ashes. In time, a name began circulating, the Phantom Accord. Not written by Earth, but forged in fear of it. A doctrine. Never provoke a race born of extinction, shaped by war and defined by memory. Never assume stillness means safety. Never forget what humanity showed them. Not wrath, capability. Because they hadn't just defeated a galactic empire. They dismantled it and walked away. Long after the last Earth ship vanished from known space, the galaxy remained haunted by silence. Systems once filled with trade, diplomacy, and argument were now cold, quiet, cautious. No one spoke of rebuilding the council. No one dared form another alliance that resembled its power. What remained were fragmented governments, isolated treaties, and an unspoken understanding. Earth had changed the rules of existence. In the shadows of forgotten war zones, scavengers whispered of finding remnants. Tech far beyond anything the council ever wielded. A drone husk that reacted to neural impulses. A blade that hummed when lies were spoken nearby. Devices whose functions weren't entirely physical. Every recovered artifact raised more questions than answers. No one could replicate them. No one could even understand them. It was as if Earth's machines weren't built. They were born. Occasionally, a transmission was picked up on ancient bands, encoded in languages long thought obsolete. They always contained coordinates. Nothing else. But those who followed them never returned. Some believed it was a trap. Others believed it was a test. The truth was simpler. Earth had never stopped watching. Its departure wasn't isolation. It was control. By removing itself from the galactic stage, it became unassailable, unpredictable. It had no territory to defend, no borders to infiltrate. It existed only as memory, myth, and possibility. And that was more powerful than any fleet. Generations passed. Species rose and fell. Wars were fought over resources Earth would have considered irrelevant. Entire empires collapsed under their own weight, unable to evolve as Earth once had. The galaxy learned painfully that peace wasn't a gift. It was a balance, a cost paid in silence and fear. And in the deepest corners of their histories, they all shared one unspoken truth. Earth had won, not because it destroyed more, but because it needed less. Because its strength wasn't in numbers or ships, it was in resolve, in its refusal to be ruled, in its capacity to endure when every other species would have fractured. Earth didn't seek justice. It became consequence. On the world of Oran. 6. A child asked her elder what happened to humans. The elder, once a council scholar, paused before answering. They learned to listen to the dark, he said. Then they became what it feared. The child asked if they would ever return. No, the elder replied. And that's what makes them terrifying. They have nothing left to prove. Elsewhere, hidden in the vaults of surviving archives, were records the public never saw. Logs from the final days of the war. One in particular, buried under layers of encryption, detailed a failed council attempt to retaliate using a secret weapon. A virus, codenamed Cleansing Light, designed to disable human neural command links. It was the council's last desperate act before Earth's fleets arrived. The file ended with a single sentence, written by a council technician moments before their relay went dark. We didn't infect them. They infected us. Some interpreted this as poetic, others literal, but no one doubted the meaning. Earth had left a scar on the mind of the galaxy, a scar that didn't heal. Decades after Earth's disappearance, a probe drifted into the Helix reaches, uncharted space where council maps went blank. It was an old model, programmed to scan for gravitational anomalies. What it found wasn't a star or a fleet. It found silence. And within that silence, a pattern. Data burst packets too regular to be random, too alien to belong to any known race. Buried in that data was a final message, translated slowly over months by desperate researchers. It read, "We don't need you to understand. We just need you to remember." That was the final legacy of Earth. Not vengeance, not dominance. Memory, the idea that one species, forged in adversity, could rise, be betrayed, adapt, and respond not with chaos but with clarity. Humanity didn't demand loyalty. It demanded honesty. It didn't seek applause. It left behind silence loud enough to echo through generations. And in that silence, the galaxy finally began to listen. Some civilizations outlawed warfare entirely, fearing they'd awaken the ghost. Others turned inward, dedicating themselves to study, to humility. A few attempted to mimic Earth's doctrines. None succeeded. They copied machines, but not the mindset. They built weapons, but not the will. Because Earth's strength had never been in the tools it used. It was in the reason it wielded them, not for glory, but for the warning. And so the galaxy kept moving, but never too loudly. Expansion slowed. Communication changed. Even the bravest captains checked their routes twice before entering old human sectors. The stars looked the same, but the maps had changed. Because somewhere out beyond the reach of probes and alliances, Earth still existed, and it was still listening.